Hi, folks. Hope you're all well. My name is Dr. Jasjit Singh from the University of Leeds, and it's a real pleasure to be given the opportunity to try and put together a short video about my current research and about the paper which I submitted to the conference. It's obviously a real shame we can't meet up together, but fingers crossed, hopefully we'll see each other in Germany in 2023. Okay, let me just share my slides. Okay, so the original paper I was going to present was entitled "Racialization, Religious Violence, and Radicalization," and looked at the framing of Sikh extremism in media and online. And in this paper, I basically argue that this reporting is primarily a consequence of the framing of religious violence and concerns about religious violence in secular media, which links to the conference theme. And I argue that these concerns are primarily driven by underlying anxieties about anti-assimilationist religious others, which are impacted by the racialization of religious minorities, which began in the colonial period, by a specific type of Indian secularism, which frames Indian legislation and reporting on Sikhs, which therefore then impacts on reporting on Sikhs in diaspora too, and the post 9/11 securitization and increased surveillance of Sikh bodies as part of the war on terror, with its concerns about religious violence. So this whole paper, which has now been published, as you can see, in the Journal of Ethnic and Migration Studies, basically argues about it argues and explains why the framing of Sikh extremism continues in certain parts of the world. So as I say, I'm happy to say this paper is being published and is available here. So I'm not going to talk about that today in this video. Today I'm going to talk about an emerging piece of research which I'm currently undertaking, which is examining the emergence and impact of the Sikh digital sphere. So not just online, but technology and other aspects of the Sikh digital sphere as well. And I'm particularly interested in understanding what's unique about the Sikh digital sphere. So please do reach out by email or Twitter if you've got any thoughts on my presentation. So this is something I've been interested in for a while. I published an article in 2014 which examined the role of the internet in the religious lives of young British Sikhs. Looked at the emergence of the Sikh online space. So talked about the emergence of Usenet groups in the late 90s and the first Sikh website, sikhs.org, which emerged online in December 1994. Now, despite the Sikh tradition being, one of the world's largest, one of the world's most recognizable religious traditions, let's say, there hasn't been that much scholarship on the Sikh tradition, and particularly on its digital presence. So as I say, I've covered some of the evolution in that article. I've written further articles particularly about the impact of English translations on Sikh religious practice. And as with many other traditions, much of the early scholarship on the Sikh tradition online, particularly done by Doris Jacobs, focused on its impact on authority and on the role of the internet in enabling spaces for Sikhs to discuss issues which they maybe wouldn't have before. And Doris argues that those people running the Usenet groups and the discussion boards became the new authorities of cyberspace. But what's interesting is the time in which the Sikh digital space emerged. So beyond the scholarship on authority, much early scholarship on the Sikh digital space focused on online representations of trauma and memory, particularly as a consequence of the relatively recent events of the 1980s in the Punjab, and particularly the storming of the Darbara Sahib of the Golden Temple by the Indian government in 1984. And much of the early digital response of the Sikhs was to articulate some of this emotion online. So you saw many websites emerging online. But what this has meant is that the internet has become an archive of some of this trauma and memory. Shani argues that it's enabled graphic images of tortured political prisoners and an obliterated Golden Temple to be transmitted to younger generations. So these conversations about the events of '84 and the fact that they continue have really been enabled by technology, and the fact that videos exist of the events, news reports, and the like. And it's as Axel argues, it's become a cyber archive of some of these struggles. Now, given the nature of the incident, there are a number of issues with this, and the fact that the conversations around the events of '84 continue online in many parts of the Sikh diaspora. So one of the most significant early websites about the issues that took place in the '80s was burningpunjab.com, which basically was a kind of gallery of some of the incidents and issues that had happened, which itself was actually banned by the Indian government, and because of some of the content and some of these issues about regulation of Sikh spaces are relevant today too. So there's been a number of incidents recently where Facebook, Twitter, Instagram have banned the Sikh hashtag, for instance. So this is all kind of relevant, and again, I'm not sure how often this would happen to other religious communities, but this is something that appears to be reasonably unique to the Sikh digital experience. This is what I'm looking at. I'm looking at what might be unique or different about the Sikh religious experience. Secondly, as a visible minority, which exists all over the world, so India, large populations in the UK, Canada, States, Australia, etc. The issue of representation is really, really important, both to Sikhs themselves. So Doris again argues that the internet has impacted on the very construction of Sikh identity, because particularly in the case of Sikh women, where a cursory search of Sikh women online would give the impression that all Sikh women wear turbans. And yesterday I did such a search, and you can see on Google Images it looks like there are many Sikh turban Sikh women, which doesn't really match the situation on the ground. Now, looking at some of these pictures, it's interesting that many of these are a consequence of a BBC news article, which was about Sikh women turban wearers, in which yours truly is mentioned also. And then this article's been taken up by other media sources, and then you see the same sorts of images used. That's not the case in all of these images, but if one person starts talking about a particular issue, then it kind of it amplifies the issue online. So there's representations of Sikhs to Sikhs themselves, and there's also issues of representations of Sikhs in mainstream media. So some British examples here in popular culture. So last week there was lots of excitement because a Sikh character appeared in a Pixar trailer for Turning Red, the film Turning Red, and that was the first ever representation of a Sikh character in a Pixar film, and there was lots of comments about the accuracy of the representation. So again, it's something that people are very excited about. Gap have used Sikhs in their advertising, as of other companies too, and there's been a history of some kinds of Sikh representation on British. So those two are examples of British TV. The top left examples from a program called Mind Your Language, in which a Sikh, Ranjit Singh, was played by a Sri Lankan, but that was a comedy about immigration, which I'm not sure would be very acceptable today. So representations in popular culture, as I've already said, representations in Indian media itself, and in Bollywood films as well. So as Roy says, Sikhs have been conventionally represented in popular Hindi cinema either as brave warriors or uncouth rustics. There's all these issues of representation which Sikhs are responding to online as well, as a very visible minority in the context in which they live. I'm just going to finish off now, and some of these have included responses to representations in popular culture as well. So overall, in terms of representations, Sikhs online often challenge representations in broadcast media, Western broadcast media, Western popular culture, Indian media, and Bollywood. Okay, so to finish, so I'm actually currently running this online survey to examine how Sikhs are using the digital space and which issues are important to them. And I'm applying Campbell's RSST to examine approach to examine how Sikh values may influence engagement with technology, and how technology has impacted on Sikh practice. So the survey is open to all Sikhs of all ages. I've got, as of this morning, 540 responses from all over the world. So it'll be really interesting to see the kind of data that's coming out of that, which websites are becoming important, which individuals are important, how the digital space is impacting on authority, community, and identity, and also on issues which are situated in the fourth wave of digital religion studies. So how it's impacting on gender, on sexuality, on politics. So Sikhs are very politically active as well. Issues of caste, issues of inequality, how Sikhs are aligning with other marginalized and minority groups. So hopefully, fingers crossed, this will be something I'll be presenting to us all in person in Germany in 2023. Take care, everyone, and it was great to talk. See you later. Thanks for listening.